Okay, I'm just letting everybody in.
Okay, we're live now.
Yes, we are.
Okay, call this meeting of the Canmore Planning Commission for November 25th, 4th, 2021. Call this meeting to order. First item of business is adoption of the agenda. Do I have actually, before we adopt the agenda, we'll just go around and introduce everybody. So my name is Jeff Roberts. I will be chair of this hearing. All questions and comments shall be directed through the chair. Moving over to introduce the members of the commission. Next, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Jackson, and I'm a member of the Planning Commission.
And Doug.
Good afternoon, Doug Wright. I'm a board member.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Alex.
My name is Alex Pooley. I'm a member of the Planning Commission.
Okay, and Florian.
Florian Youngin, public representative.
Okay, and I think that that covers off all the members that are here. The administration and staff. I'll start with you, Katie.
Hello, I'm Katie Bravo Stewart. I'm the secretary to CPC, and I'm also the planning administrative assistant with the town of Canmore.
Great, thanks, Katie. And Lauren.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lauren Miller. I'm the manager of planning with the town of Canmore.
Okay, and Jane.
Hi, good afternoon. It's Jane Dean. I am a meeting administrator and the permit clerk for the town of Canmore.
Great, thanks, Jane. Jolene.
Jolene, you're muted.
Right, I hit the wrong button, sorry. Jolene Noel, meeting administrator for this meeting today.
Great, thank you. And then we've got the development planners. You folks can introduce yourselves as we get to the agenda items that you're working with. So, Katie, is there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda that we've got today?
Not from administration, no.
Okay, thank you very much. I move the commission to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor, raise your hands. Great, it's all in favor. Thank you. So to the commission, we have previous minutes from our August 25th meeting. I understand you've had a chance to peruse those. Is there any additions, changes, or deletions to those minutes as taken? If none, I move the commission to approve the minutes from the August 25th, 2021 meeting. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Okay, we're going to get into the presentations. The next two here, we have two on the agenda. The process for this is the administration will present those matters before the commission. Commission will have an opportunity to ask questions of administration, and then at the commission's discretion, we may ask the proponent for a pre-presentation on their application if there's any questions. And if there are any members of the public that are seeking to provide input to this, we may permit those individuals to speak on behalf of either a proponent or an opponent to the to the presentation. I'd like to remind everyone that we are operating with a respectful workplace and need to ensure that all communication is respectful and on topic in the application. So without any further ado, Nathan or Alaric, I believe you're up first with development permit PL 20210275.
Great, thank you. Sorry, just trying to get my controls here. Sorry, just one moment. There we go, I'm back. I think we've got it there. All right, yes. So application PL 2021-0275 for 1717 Mountain Avenue. Before you today. All right. So the site is in the north of the Bow Valley Trail area of town and fronts onto Mountain Avenue. It's adjacent to Silver Creek Lodge to the northwest and a vacant lot, as you can see, to the south, sort of southeast. Just behind the site is the Trinity Bible Church, which has direct access to Bow Valley Trail, but in front of the site is an access ramp to the Trans-Canada photo, which you can see here. The Trans-Canada Highway, and you can see the highway in the lower right of the photo. So looking at the site from that access ramp, sort of looking southwest, the existing building, it's sort of partially obscured by the trees there. But you can also see it to the left there. So that was the Akai Motel. It was a visitor accommodation and it's currently closed down. The existing building, while it complied with the use as visitor accommodation, it didn't meet the current density minimums and is subject for a redevelopment here with this application. So this is the applicant's rendering looking northwest from Mountain Avenue in the general direction, sort of towards Banff, looking down the valley there. The development proposes 2 buildings with a total of 46 units of visitor accommodation. You can see the taller east building sort of in the foreground of this image and the lower west building in the background, which is just behind the main access road. Also clear in this image is the new mixed-use pathway, which we'll chat a bit more about in the front of the building, and this provides significant new opportunities for pedestrians and cyclists in the area. This is important as there's currently no sidewalk in front of this property. So this is a rendering from sort of the other side looking south from Mountain Avenue. And it shows the property as you would approach it from the north from Mountain Avenue. And this illustrates how the application largely conforms with the land use bylaw regulations. The building form, materials, colors, and detailing all generally align with the community architectural and urban design standards. So you can see that stone base, some articulation in the building, and the steeply pitched roofs. The 7-meter eave line is also achieved, which you can see in the top floors above that eave line step back, and that helps sort of reduce the massing as we look at the building from the public realm. Looking at the site a bit more, you can see the 2 buildings circled in red there. And as noted, the proposed development aligns with the policies of the Bow Valley Trail Area Redevelopment Plan and the Municipal Development Plan, specifically for commercial hotel development and with an entrance that faces the street and proposes an intensification of what is an underutilized site. Parking is provided in a variety of forms. You can see the 20 surface stalls sort of in the middle between the 2 buildings, and under the right-hand building or the east building is a parkade with 18 stalls. And then on the east building on the left of the image, there are 8 garage stalls there. So the parking requirement has been met. The application does require 1 variance to the front yard setback, specifically the front yard build-to requirement. And I've copied that clause out of the land use bylaw that you can see there. So as shown above, to comply with the building requirement, so the property line is the blue line here, and the red line would be the 3-meter setback, whereas the building faces a little over 3 meters back from that. So to comply with that, the building would have to be moved closer to the property line to the red line. The intent behind this regulation comes from the Bow Valley Trail Area Redevelopment Plan. and that was to sort of change the design of Bow Valley Trail from a historical secondary highway to a more urban human-scaled environment. So that's the reason for at least a portion of the building coming to within that 3-meter setback line. And so here, if we look at the drawing of what's proposed, we can see at the front of the property, there are some patios, the gray areas there. There's some additional landscaping in that area. And then if we're looking from left to right, eventually after the landscaping, there's the new 3-meter wide multi-use pathway, and then eventually Mountain Avenue. Administration supports the variance to the setback for 3 key reasons. One, having the buildings close to the street is less critical in this location. With Trans-Canada Highway access across the street, this site will never achieve the same public realm objective or feeling as we're trying to get on Bow Valley Trail. For the second reason, there's 5 bedrooms that face Mountain Avenue in the 4 visitor accommodation units that are right there on that side of the building. Bringing these bedrooms closer to the public realm is not desirable, particularly considering the new pathway that's proposed along Mountain Avenue. For the third and final reason, the new pathway along Mountain Avenue triggers the exception that's listed there in 4637, where pedestrian infrastructure or hardscaping, examples plaza seating, is provided, then it's not required to have that setback. So in this case, the patios are built in that additional 3 meters, so it achieves that along with the new pathway. I just wanted to point out that clause 114.16 establishes that as a condition for a variance, the development must meet the town of Canmore enhanced green construction requirements. To meet this requirement, the applicant has suggested that they will achieve an improvement of 10% better than the National Energy Code of Canada for buildings reference building. And that commitment has been captured as one of the proposed conditions of approval, number 6, that was attached to the report. So the additional clause there, but the applicant has met that requirement. There are a few other minor details that are proposed to be resolved through the conditions of approval. The main one is that a final plot plan reflecting the small changes in the building location be submitted prior to release of the development permit. An initial plot plan was submitted, but then there were some small changes. So we just want to clarify that. But that doesn't, generally it's intent with the application as presented here. Other fairly standard conditions include clarity on the fire, smart landscaping, requirements for visitor accommodation developments, specifically intended to discourage the illegal or unauthorized use of the property as a residence, and just final details on the proposed lighting fixtures to be provided with the building permit application. So in summary, this application is for a permitted use, and all requirements of the land use are being met with the exception of the front build to requirement. Thus, administration's recommendation is to approve the proposed development subject to the conditions proposed in the Schedule A. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alec. Maybe I'll just go around the room for the for the board. Maybe I'll start with you, Florian. Any questions or comments?
No, I think this is a pretty straightforward application. Maybe one question I have is, where is the nearest public parking in case there's need for overflow?
I will have a look. I believe there's some on Mountain Avenue, just to the north and probably to the south of the site as well. Yeah, on Mountain Avenue. There's no large lots anywhere nearby, though.
Any other?
Yeah, sorry, I can bring up a map if that's helpful. I'm just doing that right now. bring that back up there. So can you, well, not quite yet. Can you see my map there?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I'm having a small technical issue and I can't, oh, there we go. No, that's not going to help. I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen, but you can see the red roof of the Akai at the lower part of the image. And so you can see that there is some on-street parking along Mountain Avenue here to the north. I think, I mean, it's a little bit hard to gauge. I think there's probably on-street parking here. You would almost never see anyone park there because of the lack of development in that area. But there is some potential for overflow should the provided parking not meet the need.
Okay, thanks. So I'm loath to bring up the parking issue again because we spent quite a bit of time on it last meeting, but I did give it some thought and actually wanted to repent and take back something I said last meeting. And, you know, I think it's important if we believe that there's a climate emergency, which I do, and, you know, council has made that commitment, previous council, and you know, the environmental impact of developments is something that comes up regularly from planning commission members. So if we do believe that there's a climate emergency, then we have to act accordingly. And I think it's important that we, as you know, just members of the community and also as planning commission members, that we don't resist change. And so we talked about the parking requirements, the land use bylaw, and those are supported by the town's multimodal transportation plan, also the town's you know, environmental plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And so, you know, I think it's important that we don't resist changes that move us forward in that direction. So last meeting, I made some comments about, you know, the parking requirements not making sense from a certain perspective. And so I just want to take that back. I think it's important that we do everything we can, you know, to move in a sustainable direction. And sometimes that's going to mean adjusting our habits, you know, adjusting how we park and how we drive and how we get around town. And so, you know, it's, I think it's important that that we don't resist those changes. I think it's really easy to jump on the bandwagon and complain about the new intersection or even about, you know, closing down of Main Street. But then, you know, sometimes with Main Street, for example, you know, at first there was a fair bit of resistance, and it didn't take long for people to see what a positive thing that is for the community. So yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, correct a statement that I made previously. So all that being said, it's still difficult for me to see when we have 4-bedroom visitor accommodation units. It's still hard for me to imagine that there aren't going to be times when there's multiple cars per unit. And so I think there needs to be some kind of consideration of what will happen when all those units are full and there's overflow, because I know the parking there that Alaric or Mr. Fish just pointed out is often quite full. You know, if you try to go to the sushi restaurant there, it's often hard to find parking as it is. And there's been so many visitor accommodation units come through Planning Commission in the last year. I don't know how many, but I'm pretty confident over 100 just in the last year. And, you know, I'm sure there's more in the works. So, you know, I think there needs to be consideration for what happens with parking when there's 4-bedroom units and only one parking provided. So a little bit off topic, maybe. I think in general, this is quite a straightforward application, and I really don't have any objections. I agree that the one minor variance is totally supportable because it's really the intent of it was for Bow Valley Trail.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Lauren, you've got a comment to make.
Yes, I'd just like to kind of respond to some of the concerns that Mr. Youngin brought up and has been continually raised at CPC with regard to parking for visitor accom. So just want to offer some things for the commission to consider as part of their deliberations is that, as we've mentioned in the past, that the applicant knows their business. They have a sense, a business model, an operational approach that they would like to use, and that is outside of the jurisdiction of the CPC. However, when it comes to parking, if the applicant felt that there was a need for more parking, they could propose to have more stalls and request the variance to our maximum parking requirements. That has not occurred in this application. So if there are questions about the appropriateness of the parking requirement for this particular development, I would encourage the commission to forward those questions to the applicant and have them help you understand some of their rationale for why they are proposing the parking requirement they're proposing and not looking for additional parking, or what are their plans to manage overflow, because to have a lack of parking is detrimental to their business. So if people don't want to come and stay at their hotel because there's not enough parking, they were going to need to make a change. And that's something that's within the applicant's ability to do so. So I just wanted to kind of offer that to the commission to keep that in mind. And if there are additional concerns, let's have the applicant speak to the approach that they're proposing.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miller. Alex, over to you.
No specific questions really, well, other than the enhanced green construction. I know that the developer's committed to increasing surpassing the National Energy Building Code. Is planning satisfied that that's been included in the design?
Short answer is yes. They're working with a certified energy advisor. We haven't seen details on that yet, but it is a condition. I don't have it in front of me, but prior to, I think, release of certainly of the building permit, that they show or that they demonstrate how they're going to achieve that. So yes, we are satisfied.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Lisa, over to you.
No, I don't have any further questions at this point.
Okay, thanks. Doug?
No questions.
Okay, I've got a couple questions here. One is you talked about provisions that are in place to prevent these from becoming permanent residents. I wonder if either Alaric, you or the applicant can reconcile the fact that we have a number of these with garages that would tend to could encourage or could imply that that these accommodations are going to be used for longer term use.
Yeah, there's another development in town that also has garages in a townhouse style of development, of a visitor accommodation development. And I guess there's no prohibition against that. It certainly looks and feels a bit like a regular residential townhouse, but there's no explicit prohibition. So whether it's a garage or a parkade, it's a form of indoor parking, and there's no limitations on, I mean, a lot of the new condo style units might have a small lock-off area so that when it's in a rental pool or something, there's a storage area for the owners to store supplies or equipment, or, I mean, it can be even cleaning supplies. So although it's not that common, and I can see how it does look a certain way, there's nothing that prohibits that or necessarily assures that it would be or requires that it would be a residential use. So
Okay.
We're satisfied with it.
Okay, great. Can you comment on how does BYLAW ensure that units are not that they are meeting the intent of the visitor accommodation and not permanent accommodation? What's the process for going through that?
I'm happy to answer, but it looks like Miss Miller might chime in.
Awesome. Okay.
So I can start, Alaric, and then if you want to bring up the rear, that's fine. I would just note that our process for enforcement is complaint driven. So we would need to receive a complaint for us to follow up on a particular concern about the length of stay in a particular unit. So we're not necessarily actively knocking on doors to see how long people are staying, but if there is concern that the length of stay is exceeding that of the bylaw, then enforcement actions would proceed.
Okay. So if you had a group of strata owners of visitor accommodation decided that they were all going to live there permanently, not complain to each other's, then that would in effect become a permanent residence if nobody's complaining.
It is possible. I mean, it's a very hard thing for us to enforce. So I don't want to suggest that that the enforcement is particularly strong there. Usually our strongest enforcement has been when we see a property advertised for residential use in those areas, but there's no requirement that an owner put a unit into a rental pool or make it available. So if someone purchases one of these condominium units, they might just use it themselves recreationally, and that would not be offside of the bylaw. So to catch, quote unquote, catch someone staying longer than 30 days is extremely difficult. They would be paying commercial taxes. That's another place where we sort of become aware of these when someone calls and says, "Hi, I'm living in unit 1234. How come my taxes are so high?" And we're saying, well, you're actually in a hotel unit, a visitor accommodation unit, and you're not allowed to live there. So enforcement is tricky, but we're still, for the most part, achieving a lot of the community objectives with the unit.
Okay. And last, maybe you can help me with this, or we can have the proponent speak to this. So understand we're going to be meeting Canmore's green building standards. Will this structure, these two structures, be net zero ready? And in fact, will they be able to get to achieve near net zero or net zero when building codes do change in the foreseeable future?
So that hasn't been proposed that I'm aware of right now, but I'll leave you to ask that to the applicant. Perhaps they're in a better position to answer that. So,
okay. Any other questions for Alaric before we move on? No. So perhaps the applicant or someone on behalf of the applicant could respond to my net zero ready question.
Yeah, that would be myself. Hello, I'm Tanner Allred from Systemic Architecture here in Calgary, representing our owner. And so to respond to your question through the chair, the net zero requirement is a high-end goal that the government has, a long-term goal. And so we're kind of stepping towards that. And in fact, they call it the STEP code. So currently the requirement is the reference building. And to go beyond that, 10% like we're proposing is a step towards net zero, but it's not there. I would say typically 75, 80, 90% in that range would offer would kind of put it in a net zero readiness state. So that would be kind of my response to that.
Well, but I guess what I was looking for is there contemplation of the ability to put solar panels on to augment the energy consumption at some point in the future?
There's definitely the ability and capacity to do so. It's not being contemplated as part of this application, however.
Okay. Yep, and I understand it's not required, so just a the world is moving in a different direction, and some
Yeah.
are moving quickly and others are dragging their feet and digging their heels in. So any other questions from Commission Florian?
Yeah, if I could just follow up on Ms. Miller's suggestion that the applicant give us sort of a strategy or what they figure needs are for parking.
Sure. Through the chair again, it's worthy to note, I don't have the site plan available to kind of show, but for each of the 4-bedroom units, they each have a garage assigned to them, but also a driveway, which would create a tandem parking situation for each one of those units. So each one of those would in fact have 2 parking stalls, but technically speaking, because it's tandem, they only count as 1 in terms of how the bylaw recognizes them. But in reality, we're 8 parking stalls over the requirement. So that would be my response to that.
Okay. Thank you. Any, Florian, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, could I just follow up on that? So, I mean, am I correct that it's quite possible that all the units are occupied and several of the units have 4-bedroom? Like, is that how you plan for parking needs, is assuming that all those units will be occupied?
It's hard to say that there will be a moment in time that every single unit in the whole development will be occupied at one time. Again, there are 46 in total. But even if each of the townhouse units is occupied at one time, we're accounting for 1 unit having 2 parking stalls available to them if needed. And so I can't see us needing more than that. And then in the odd chance that there is some visitor that needs to stop by, as Alric pointed out, there is opportunities on the adjacent streets, the odd time to potentially park. But we feel that we have provided a suitable number of parking stalls for the development, with the bylaw being the benchmark to meet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other further questions from board members? So not forgoing the previous discussion, I do think this is a development that fits the zoning, fits the location, and is certainly a step up from the existing structures that exist on that property now. So I see we don't have anyone from the public that is on here, either supporting this or opposing it. I am prepared to make a motion to approve this this development with the conditions as listed. Would my fellow board members be supportive of that? If so, show of hands. Okay, thank you. This development has been unanimously approved by the Planning Commission with the conditions as detailed in Schedule A. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next application, PL 20210342, 1 Spring Creek Gate. Nathan, I think you're on. You've got this one.
Yes, sir. This one's mine. Just give me a second to share my PowerPoint. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay, good afternoon, members of the Canmore Planning Commission, as well as those watching online. My name is Nathan Gravel. I'm a development planner. My presentation today is in regards to development permit application PL 2021-0342, as mentioned, an application proposing mixed-use development at 1408 Spring Creek Gate and referred to as Timberstone Lodge. For those unfamiliar, Spring Creek, it's a residential area with support commercial south of Main Street, west of Bow Valley Trail, and it's framed by Spring Creek and Policeman's Creek. The black box up on the screen shows the location of the subject site, which is in the heart of the village. The subject site is a brownfield site previously used as part of the mobile home park. The mobile homes have been removed from the site in preparation for future development. Adjacent to the site are a variety of uses and features, such as a mixed-use building known as Tamarack Lodge, currently under construction to the north, vacant land, and Policeman's Creek to the east. Mixed-use building known as Arnica Lodge under construction as well to the west, and mobile homes to the south. The subject site is within and governed by the Spring Creek Mountain Village Area Redevelopment Plan. The ARP envisioned this site next to the future public plaza as part of the commercial focal point for the village. The development complies with this and all other requirements of the ARP. The following uses are proposed with this application: 55 tourist home units and 1 live-work unit. These uses fit the intent of the district and the location of the site. With regards to form, there is 1 building being proposed, ranging from 3 to 4 stories with an interior courtyard. Parking is accommodated by underground and street level parking. With regards to the ground floor layout, the ground floor is composed of tourist homes with a live-work studio on the corner adjacent to Spring Creek Drive and Spring Creek Gate. The blue arrow on the slide represents the entrance to the unit. The dark red arrow marks the common entrance to the building, and the 5 light red arrows mark individual entrances to tourist home units. The application requires 3 variances. Variances to maximum building height, built to line setbacks, and open block space. I'll get into these a little bit more in a minute. But first, I did want to highlight where the application exceeds the land use bylaw. It exceeds the land use bylaw with respect to providing geo-exchange heating and cooling, achieving certified built green level gold, and achieving a minimum of 16% better than the requirements of the National Energy Code of Canada. And these benefits are reflected in and quantified by the applicant's sustainability screening report. They have a SSR score of approximately 12, suggesting the proposed development will have a positive impact on the community. So digging into the variances in a little more detail, the first variance, as I mentioned, is to building height. The development requires up to 2.42 meter height variance in Zone A and up to a 2.48 meter height variance in Zone B. The size of the height variance is influenced by the parkade, which is set a little higher. It pushes out of the ceiling of which pushes out of the ground for flood protection, and that drives the building a bit higher. The district does allow for the development authority to grant variance to roof heights within the roof zones when the architectural integrity of the building would be enhanced. Some of the commission members will recall that this was requested as well with Arnica Lodge and Tamarack Lodge. So the allowable variances are in height zones A, B, and C. 20% of the building may exceed the maximum height by up to 10%, and 5% of the building may exceed the maximum height by up to 20%. The building is within these variance allowances. Administration does believe that the architectural integrity of the building is enhanced through the design of the roof. If you look at the slide, you can see the design of the roof. As with the last 2 Spring Creek projects, the proposed roof is fully pitched, also known as a working roof. It's not cut off and flat in the central portions, as seen in some of the other developments in Canmore, for example, the Super 8 or Canadian Tire. A working roof is considered visually superior to a cut-off roof, as it appears natural and the mass of the building is perceived as lower. Also, the proposed roof has this cascade of pitches, which you can see clearly on the screen, which sort of helps to further break up the massing. Finally, the design of the roof and the added height will not negatively impact the future public plaza in front of Tamarack Lodge. which is intended to be the focal point of activity within the village. You can see the shadow study up on the slide, showing the extent of the shadows. Moving on to the second variance, the district also requires built-to line variations to break up the perceived mass of the building. The principal built-to line with allowable variations is 40% to 75% of the main floor block frontage is required to be within 1.5 meters of the property line. So trying to bring a majority of the building to the street and the sidewalk. And then a minimum of 25% of the building is to be set back between 1.5 meters and 3 meters to sort of allow for that facade articulation and to get some interest and breaking up of the mass at the street level. So no part of the main floor frontage is supposed to be back more than 3 meters from the property line. With regards to Spring Creek Gate, the frontage along Spring Creek Gate, there is one portion of the facade that's further back than 4.81 meter or than 3 meters. The blue arrow up on the screen here represents this 3 meter wide section of the facade, or portion of the facade that's stepped back 4.81 meters. So a little further to accommodate a landscaping bed. Administration believes that the non-conformance is small and the facade or the frontage is architecturally pleasing. So it's meeting the intent of the regulation there. There's lots of details, there's lots of articulation. It's an interesting street frontage. So administration supports the relaxation. A Spring Creek Drive frontage has a site constraint that required the building to be set back further than the 3 meters from the property line. A utility right-of-way, as you can see up on the screen there, cuts across the corner of the property. And so the developer responded to this constraint by setting the building back, obviously, so it doesn't encroach into the URW, and then sort of bringing the remaining portion of the building forward in 2 sections, sort of creating this interesting design along the street. So although that frontage approximately 60% of it is further than 3 meters from the property line, in the opinion of administration, the design responds well to the site constraint and it meets the intent of the regulations in that it's very interesting and it's an engaging frontage, including the entrances that come off those tourist home units. And finally, the district also requires that 25% of the site be continuous, well-programmed and landscaped open block space. The applicants provided 21.9% in the form of a landscaped courtyard on the east side of the building, requiring a 3.1% variance. Administration supports the variance as the open block makes the best use of the shape of the parcel. They proposed additional space would effectively eliminate some of the ground floor units along that side of the building, and it's a bit of a trade-off there. Those units do help to actually increase the comfort of that space by adding some more eyes to it. Eyes on the street, as they say. And secondly, although it's discontinuous with that open space, there's a bit of open space, a small plaza area on the north side of the building that complements the intent of the open block space requirement. And that area and a little bit of landscaping along the north frontage there amounts to about 3.4%, giving a total open space provision of 25.3%. So they're essentially meeting the area requirements and they're meeting the intent through the design that they've proposed. It's also worth mentioning that there is the plaza across the street, which will be the primary amenity space for social interaction in the village, and especially for buildings that are right adjacent to it. So a lot of the users of, the residents of this building will probably just head over there to use that amenity space. A notice of application was posted on the site for 10 days, listing all the variances. No comments from the public were received. So given the alignment with the ARP and the economic and environmental benefits of this development. Administration recommends that the Canmore Planning Commission approve PL 2021-0342. Should the Commission decide to approve the development, conditions of conditions of approval have been prepared. These can be altered at the discretion of the Commission. However, it's not recommended that the Commission tinker with the standard conditions section, as these are generally in response to council-approved documents and so forth. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions the Commission has.
Thanks very much, Nathan. So I'll open it up to the floor or to the board for questions for Nathan. We'll start in reverse order. How about you, Doug?
I've got no questions for Nathan on this one. He's explained the three variances. And as he mentioned in his presentation, a couple of the variances are similar to what we've seen in prior building developments within Spring Creek. So for consistency, it does make sense that we do approve these.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Lisa?
I feel similarly to Doug. I don't have any questions, and thanks, Nathan. That was very clear. I think my comment would just be, it's interesting to look at the one variance about open space with respect to the fact that there's a planned plaza across the street, because in my mind, we're not really looking at another piece of property when we're making the decisions about this. So I just find that interesting, but not worth more conversation or questions at this time.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Alex?
I am happy with the architectural intent of the development. I think it falls into line with the other buildings in the area and previous applications that have come through the Planning Commission. So I have no further questions.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Florian?
Yep, I would echo what everyone else has said. I think this is a pretty straightforward application again. And I would also like to commend the applicant for the extent to which they're exceeding green build requirements and really setting an example for the community. And I think it might be worthwhile for administration to look at these projects as a case study for what other buildings could do in Canmore. I think this development or these developments in Spring Creek are really setting an example of what can be achieved, and it seems to be economically feasible and technically feasible. So I just like to commend the applicant again. I think it's really good to see someone stepping forward like that.
Yeah, thanks, Florian. I would tend to agree with everyone's comments on here. The one question that I do have, and I note that many, if not all of the buildings in the Spring Creek development have utilized geo-exchange for minimizing greenhouse gas emissions and getting closer to a net zero. Could the roofs in the future support solar panels if the applicant chose to go in that direction at some time down the road?
I would defer that question to Spring Creek, the applicant. If one of their member from their team would like to respond to that.
Frank here, if you mind if I respond.
Sure, go ahead.
That'd be great, Frank.
Thanks, guys. First, Tamarack, the building across the street, we are installing solar panels on that. It wasn't part of our application, that Planning Commission a couple years ago, but it's all our buildings, we've been trying to make them at least solar ready. And that is, to do that, you need to get at least conduits up to the roof. And you have to make sure structurally your roofs can support the solar panels and the snow loads and everything with them. So, just pass on the Planning Commission for further application. It's quite cost effective to get a building solar ready. It's quite costly to install the panels. We are doing it on Tamarack and plan to do it on Arica. This building we are designing to also be solar ready. And it ends up being at the end of the day budget. We had a 30% cost of construction increase in the last couple of years of construction, but we did find it in the budget in Tamarack, and we're hoping to continue to on our future buildings. to be able to use the geothermal with solar is probably the best combination you can do to get to the net zero, besides doing more building envelope amendments. We are, I know we said 16% on that, but maybe Drew can pipe in here on our previous buildings. We're usually hitting at least 25 to 35 of energy efficiency over the base building. But we put in a conservative number just to make sure we can exceed goals, not underachieve our goals. Drew might be able to answer that a little more, my planner, because he gets all the energy reports that we do submit to the town. And we're the first building in Canada to get recognized by Built Green as a Built Green community just here this last 6 months, and rated as platinum. And generally our buildings are coming in minimum gold, but most of them are coming in at platinum rating when we actually do the final report. So yeah, we are solar ready 100%, and I'm really hoping on all future buildings we can put it on the south-facing slopes of the roofs.
Great, thanks, Frank. Any other questions? Florian, I see your hands up there.
Yeah, I guess thank you to the applicant for explaining a little bit more. And I think the applicant brought up an interesting policy there of installing solar ready. I know other jurisdictions require that because it's just a very minimal investment that's required of a developer at this stage. But what it does is allows solar panels to be installed in the future. So, you know, we're approving buildings that hopefully will be here in 75 years, maybe longer. And at that time, you know, Canada has committed to being carbon neutral. So I think that is something that the town could look into, requirements in the land use bylaw of having developments at least being solar ready, because it's just a small investment up front that allows that to happen a lot more easily in the future. If you try to install solar panels in a building that hasn't been plumbed for to be ready for that, it's much more intrusive. And so, you know, just for a little bit of extra PVC up front, it's such a minimal burden. It allows for buildings to be retrofit in the future. So I think that's a really great example that Spring Creek has adopted, and I think that's something that the town could look into.
Thanks, Florian. Any other questions or comments from the board? If not, I think this is pretty straightforward. We've seen many of the Spring Creek developments in the past, and they do provide. They say what they're going to do. So I'm prepared to make a motion to approve this application with the variances approved and the conditions of approval as listed in Schedule A. All those in favor? Show of hands. That's unanimous. Okay, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Nathan, and thank you, Frank, for providing that commentary.
Thank you so much too for your time.
So next item on the agenda is other planning business. So from the July meeting, I had a commitment to put a letter together related to the dialogue and some of the consternations that the board had with approval of the 10th Street visitor accommodation. And I've done that and circulated that and received comments. So prior to submitting that to council, I'm just going to have plan to have a follow-up with Lauren on that letter to get some additional insight from administration before taking that letter forward. So if all are okay with that, we'll table that. That discussion and any edits that come out of that will be distributed to all of you prior to the December Planning Commission meeting. So if we're all okay with that, we'll table that till the 16th with additional information. Okay, Katie, the next scheduled meeting is December 15th.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if nothing else, I move that we adjourn the Planning Commission, the November 24th meeting. And thank you all for your attendance and valued input. So motion to adjourn. All those in favor? At 2:56, we're just under the hour piece. Okay, thanks. Have a good rest of the day, all of you.